Arthur Gordon, a native of Savannah, Georgia. He graduated from high school, did something few people in his area, in his community, had ever done. He won a full scholarship to Yale University. He had the will, the determination to pit himself against the Ivy League competition, and he done real well. He graduated one of two young men who was awarded the prestigious Rhodes Scholarship. Done so well. Got to spend, I think it was maybe 2 years at Oxford in his chosen discipline, which of course was English literature. Said that he even got to spend the afternoon with one of his heroes, Kipling, before he passed on. Whenever he came back from Oxford, the clouds of World War II were beginning to gather. He joined the military with some of his friends, and for the next 5 years was defending his country. When the war was over, he came home, got with some of his Ivy League colleagues, and they brought an idea into reality. The project that was conceived in the pubs back in New Haven. In college, they talked about how good it would be, how wonderful it would be for them to have a journal which would help upcoming poets and writers and give them the break and the starch that they needed. They wanted to specialize in helping young people find their niche in life. They formed such a journal, and Gordon was made the editor, the managing top man, the editor of the Enterprise. The next 2 years were very, very, very exciting. They were great. He was the facilitator, and he was working with young poets and young writers, trying to get them better acquainted and better start in life. He turned out to be a better writer than he did a businessman. And even though the magazine had great acclaim, critical acclaim, it folded, financially failed. Gordon had not only worked as a top man in the paper, but he had invested a lot of his own money. He signed too many notes, and there was literally hundreds of thousands of dollars that was owed. And then to cap it off, his sweetheart back in Savannah, Georgia, she called off the engagement. And she said, "I'm tired waiting. I've been waiting too long for you." So she went off and married someone else. In a matter of days, Arthur Gordon, his life was turned upside down. It was his first big encounter with failure. And he didn't know how to handle it. You see, failure is a significant rite of passage for all human beings. And it's especially significant for someone who has hardly known anything but applause. And failure can be hard to handle. He became very depressed, withdrawn, discouraged, even suicidal. He would sit in his room all day, wouldn't even open the curtains, draw the blinds. He wouldn't shave. He would sit there day after day after day. His family were really worried about him. His family headed to New York, kind of an intervention. They found him in a sad, depressing condition. But they were able to talk with him and feed him and get him into the bath and clean him up a little bit. And they said, "Why don't you talk to one of our family friends down here in New York, Manhattan? We have an old family friend who happens to be a therapist." Gordon agreed. He agreed. He gets to the old therapist, and he had finally talked to him for several days, emptied himself of all of his failure. The therapist says, you know, your story reminds me of lots of people that I have worked with, and they were in a similar position to you. Would you be willing to listen to some of the recordings? I've made some recordings, and they have agreed. They said it's okay for you to hear this. But these are people that I have literally interviewed, and I'd like for you to listen to some of the tapes. Gordon agreed. The old man started to play one tape, one recording after another. First of all, it was a man's voice. And this man had felt failure when it came to his children. He felt like somewhere along the line he had let them down. Somewhere along the line there was something he didn't do. But he was not having a good relationship with some of his family members, and it was causing him much pain. He was filled with remorse. He even said, I feel so bad about abusing my parental power. The second recording was a woman, and she had finally, it dawned on her that she may have contributed something to the demise of her marriage. And she started to feel, well, maybe I done something wrong. You see, up to that point, it was all the spouse's fault for everything. Marriage is not created alone, and marriage is not destroyed alone. And then there was a third recording, a businessman who made some reckless mistakes and caused the company literally thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. To cut the story short, the therapist says to Gordon, can you see a common thread in all these stories? The old therapist asked. Gordon, bright Rhodes Scholar, said, of course. All of these people, in their own way, are saying, if only I had acted differently in the past. That's exactly right, the therapist says. But I need to tell you, I am instrumental in getting these people on track again. Every single one of them are unstuck from where they were when you were listening to these recordings. And he says they are back in life again, productive, coping with their lives and being successful. But they had to learn to substitute two words. He said, I taught them to say, next time, instead of if only. How many times have we said, if only I hadn't have said that? If only I had walked away. If only I had turned my back and just shuffled off. If only. You see, if only points to a segment, human experience, that cannot be altered. When we say if only, it's something about our past that is frozen and you feel bad. But you can't undo, you can't redo the past. The past is the past, and energy spent lamenting on the past is energy wasted. But next time points to that section, that experience that is still open, can still be shaped. Arthur Gordon said that the lessons he learned from this old therapist in Manhattan, New York, he said they had been more practical to me in saving my life than all I had learned at Yale and Oxford put together. He said the old man saved my life. If only next time. You know, the good book says we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. If you're an adult, too late to worry about your innocence, because every single one of us have things in our past. If we could do them differently, of course we would. If we could go back time, go back to the past and undo them, things we should have done that we didn't do, things that we should have said that we said, and vice versa. Listen, we all have skeletons in the closet. But the psalmist says in Psalm 103, verse 10, that God does not deal with us according to our sins. God deals with us according to the possibility of what we can become. You remember old Peter 3 times, I never knew you. And there he is cursing, get away from me, I never knew you. And when he meets Jesus and confronts Jesus, and Jesus says, Peter, do you love me? Fresh start. Not if only. Next time, Peter. And Peter became that great preacher on the day of Pentecost that preached to 3,000 people on the day of Pentecost. He loves you. He wants you in heaven. He wants to save our souls. May God bless you. Have a wonderful day.